Let's turn our attention now to Edo State, where we're monitoring developments in the past 100 days, the first 100 days of Governor Gov Okpebholo. There are conversations as regards what has happened in the area of infrastructure, healthcare, education, and economic revitalization, as well as his campaign promises prior to winning that election. There are also concerns as to development with the suspension and eventual impeachment of some local government chairmen, which has sparked controversy and raised questions about the governor's approach to governance. And we'll be talking quite a number of issues, developing issues in that part of the country. Let's bring in special advisor on media and publicity to the Edo State Governor, Gov Okhuemoi. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you, Nifemi. Good to be here.
Absolutely. It's good to drag you all the way from Edo to have this conversation.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
So, Mr. Governor did promise some 5-point agenda,
yes,
which he said he would follow to the letter. What would you say he's achieved in the past 100 days?
A lot. I mean, it's been a breath of fresh air over the last 100 days, a new dawn, a new way of doing things, a government that the people of Edo State voted for, and a government that has been meeting their expectations. The governor is running on what we call the SHINE agenda. Now, the SHINE is an acronym for security, healthcare, infrastructural development, natural resources, and agriculture, which encompasses food security and food sustenance and education. And in all those 5 areas in the last 100 days, the governor's impact and imprint have been very, very effective and evident in those areas. So do I go ahead and start listing them before we get there? We'll
probably just touch on a few of them because we don't have enough time. Obviously. You are spokesperson for the governor, so that is what you do. But we are hearing about reconstructing and renovating 100 schools. Will that still happen within this first 100 days?
Well, it has already started. A lot of schools are already being renovated. And maybe I should lay a background on how Governor Okpebholo operates and how he achieves the things that he achieves. Governor Okpebholo is a very pragmatic personality, very proactive, very hands-on. He approaches governance from a top to bottom, from his bottom-top strategy rather than from a top to bottom. A top to bottom strategy, which is what was consistent with the past administration, is the people at the top saying, I know what you need, I'll give you what you need. But the bottom-up approach is, what do the people need? Reaching out to the people, hearing from them, and knowing what exactly their needs are. Now, because of his style of governance, which is very proactive and hands-on, he doesn't wait for that holistic. So, for example, this is a governor who's in the office morning till evening, and once it's 5 p.m., everybody gets on the road for project inspection. As he inspects a road project, for example, in a community, he observes a school that is dilapidated, that is not, that is not fit for learning. With a few inquiries, work immediately is commissioned to begin on that school. So when we say 100 schools in 100 days, we might not be waiting for one elaborate. Work is already going. Several schools have already been renovated, and a lot more will be renovated.
A promise is a promise. He did say 100 schools.
Yes.
In 100 days. How many schools has he fixed within the 100 days in office?
That's what I'm saying. Several schools have been fixed. Several are different.
I thought you were going to put a number to it, actually.
Well, when you say fixed,
yes,
completed, we have quite a number of schools that have been completed. Some are ongoing. Okay. Some are still being worked on. And fixing the schools is just one part of attending to education. Teachers, over 8,500 primary school teachers have been promoted recently, primary and secondary school teachers, and many more are being recruited. So the attention to education is holistic. Beyond just renovating schools, so much is going on in education at the same time. So as much as we look at the renovation of schools, we're also looking at equipping schools, we're also looking at the manpower, we're also looking at, several. Governor Okpebholo is very committed. Education is a very key part of his 5-point agenda, and so much is already going on in that direction. A
lot has happened since November when he became governor.
Yes.
We're going to touch on quite a number of the projects he's promised and whether or not he's been able to fulfill those promises. But he's also courted a lot of controversies.
Okay.
And I'd like us to touch about that because we've seen suspension,
yes,
and the impeachment of some local government chairmen.
Okay.
The conversation has been, why does it seem difficult for governors to work with council chairmen elected on opposition platforms?
okay, let's situate it properly. You know, I think it's good that I have this platform to also address some of these things. The state government did not suspend local government chairmen. The constitution gives the governor some oversight function over local government affairs. Now, when he came into office, there were heavy reports about misappropriation of local government funds, about fraudulent activities going on. So, in exercising his oversight function over the local government, he wrote to the local government chairman asking that they provide, you know, he needed to have an idea of what the financial situation with the local governments were, of course, as part of settling down into office. Unfortunately, they didn't cooperate. And
then he petitioned the House of Assembly.
And then he wrote a letter to the House of Assembly explaining to them that look at what the situation with the local governments are.
Which kick-started the process of the suspension.
Yes, and the House of Assembly, in its wisdom, decided, okay, for proper investigations to be done, it might be necessary for this chairman to step aside so that the investigations can be thorough, so that they can be transparent, so that they can be, you know. While the suspension was on, some councillors in different local governments impeached their chairman. Probably
without any influence from Mr. Governor. Because there's what you're saying, there's what the opposition is saying. There's what the opposition is saying to the extent that this administration has sacked every single individual who refused to work with the councillors to remove their chairman.
Opposition have a job to do, opposition, so they will oppose. But it doesn't mean their position is what the position is. I'm telling you what the position is. Some councillors who wanted to align with the progressive and forward-looking government of Governor Monday Okpebholo felt that the chairman weren't going to be in line with that vision, which would have stifled development in the local government. And they took the decisions that they took. So the state government had nothing to do with that, you know. And when you talk about suspensions, like I said, opposition will be opposition.
And this is not even, this is not limited to Edo State. I'm sure you're following the situation in Osun where the attempt by some APC chairmen to enforce a court of appeal judgment was met by violence. I was speaking with the national president of the APC yesterday on the news, and it was quite angry about the fact that some people were killed and what have you. Some would say everyone in Nigeria wants local government autonomy except state governors.
Well, I can't speak.
Because this is a cross-political divide. In Osun, it's PDP. In Edo, it's APC. But the bottom line is that the expectation is that once a local government chairman is elected, he's expected to stay through the course of that period in office. Because he was elected the same way Mr. Governor was elected.
Exactly. And like I said, I can't speak for Osun, but I can speak for Edo State. Mr. Governor has utmost respect for the rule of law, has utmost respect for democracy. He understands the importance of the people having a say in who governs them. So Senator Monday Okpebholo as governor will not interfere with any democratic process that is already established. Like I stated earlier and I state again, the issues with the local government were situated locally. You know, they also say politics is local. So you look at politics in the localities that they happen. Senator Monday Okpebholo as governor is very in line with the ideology and the vision of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and it is. I mean, it's clear to everybody that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is particular about local government financial autonomy, which he has consistently.
I had the deputy governor on the show last year, and I raised that issue with him about whether or not this administration is in alignment with the Tinubu administration in that regard. And he said exactly what you said. But last year, there was an administrative panel of inquiry set up to look into the books of these chairmen.
Yes.
We understand that the report is out, and there is this allegation of 96 billion naira loot. The former governor has been dragged into the situation, and he's described this allegation as another desperate attempt to justify Okpebholo's unconstitutional onslaught on elected council electives. How do you react to that?
Like I said, opposition will be opposition. They will do what they need to do. So we're not going to be so focused on that too much. Now, let me also say something very key. This government came in meeting a major challenge, and that was the incomplete process of the transition. You know, the transition from the past government to this government. If you remember the circumstances around that situation, it couldn't happen successfully. And that was because, I dare say again, that we had a government that was very elitist in the past administration, a government that was, that felt it knew what had to be done, irrespective of whether that was the right thing to do or not. So the situation around the transition was, our team, the team that was put together on the governor-elect side, as he was at that time, requested for certain information, but of course, in their usual way, they insisted, this is what we want to give to you. But this was a team made up of tested administrators I mean, top quality government officials. It was headed by a former deputy governor. It had a former secretary to the state government in it. It had about 2 chief of staffs, if I'm correct, had a federal permanent secretary. So these are people who are very versed with the operations of government. And if these people say, for us to take off smoothly, these are things that we require, they knew what they were doing. But unfortunately, like I said, that process didn't work. What that cost was that when this government came in, time and resources had to be committed to begin to ascertain the true position of several issues. And one of the areas that was looked at, of course, was the assets. You know, what are assets? What are the conditions of some of the agreements and contracts that were signed by the previous government? And of course, the local government situation. So the administrative panel was set up to look into local government affairs, and the report was submitted. And from the summary of the report that has been presented so far, it shows that from the period of, I think, November or September 2023 to November 2024, over 96 billion that had accrued to local governments were either mismanaged or fraudulently diverted. And that's the situation as it is presently.
But what the Obaseki camp is saying is that Mr. Governor doesn't have the supervisory responsibility over local government and can therefore not set up an investigation of government officials that were elected the same way he was elected.
The governor section, I'm not a lawyer, but I think section 7 gives the state's governor some oversight function over local government. Governance is about the people. We must never lose sight of that fact, irrespective of whatever politics is played. The people must never suffer for politics. So if the local government, which is the closest arm of government to the people, isn't functioning optimally, it's going to have an effect on the delivery of service and, of course, the governor's performance himself. So to think the governor is just going to sit back and allow the local governments to do whatever they have to do will be a misnomer. You know, so the governor had to have an idea what's going on. The responsibility to provide delivery to the citizens is on all the tiers of government, the federal, the state, and the local government. If I know that you are not handling your responsibility properly and the people are going to be shortchanged, I mean, a responsible government will have to do something about that. So the governor is just playing his role as a responsible, you know, proactive governor who's passionate about his people. And the affairs of the local government form a major part of the concerns he needs to address.
You speak for Gov Okpebholo.
Yes.
And you're close to him as a spokesperson.
Yes.
Do you think he's going to probe the Obaseki administration?
Well, I don't know if you call it a probe. Governor Monday Okpebholo is a very focused person.
Because it looks like that's what's happening right now.
You know, he's a very focused person, and he has his work clearly cut out for him. He made a promise to the Edo people during campaigns, and he's eager to fulfill those promises. As he goes on that journey to fulfill those promises, anywhere there are issues that need to be addressed to be able to deliver that, he does that. He addresses those issues. He came into office, he needed to know the last government worked with a lot of non-state actors, consultants from out of town. I mean, almost the whole of the government's administrative structure, the civil service, was being run at the top by consultants. He needed to sort all of that out, you know, review a lot of the records, review a lot of the contracts, you know, excuse those that couldn't be allowed to continue. And in the process of doing that, some form of audit had to be carried out. Same with the local governments, because a lot of what he needs to, for example, one of his major areas of intervention is agriculture. The local government has a lot of role to play in that if that plan will succeed.
Boogie, you already answered question like a politician.
No, it's what it is. I'm asking questions like a truthful person, you know. So,
is it going to probe
if you the
previous administration, yes or no?
If you now say his assessments are a probe, that is left to you. Right. But what he's doing is having the proper
there are specific promises Mr. Governor made during the campaign. In September last year, he assured the people of Okhuemoi of the revival of the Ojiramir Dam.
Yes.
That's what it's called, right?
Yes.
Ojiramir Dam. And that he would provide water for the people. To provide water for Okhuemoi, the revival of that dam will be my priority. What has happened in 100 days?
Well, 100 days is 3 months out of a potential 96 if he does 2 terms. So we may not expect everything to happen in 3 months. But I'm happy you talked about water. Water is a very, very, I mean, it's almost personal to the governor. You know, the governor growing up had just one sister who he was very close to. Unfortunately, she passed away while he was very young from complications arising from water that wasn't proper for drinking. And from that young age, he already made a promise that he would ensure that no family has to go through that because of water. So So water is a very major part, and if he has promised that, I can assure you that whatever Governor Monday Okpebholo promised in the campaigns, it will definitely be done. But let's remember, it's just 3 months. So much more is going to be coming up, which includes the subject you refer to.
I'll take that, but you know, the thing with politics and campaign is that journalists are watching and they are taking notes.
Of course.
Mr. Governor talked about the road between Ososo and Okpebholo, that it will be given immediate attention within 100 days of his administration.
So many road projects are already ongoing, so many. Okpebholo to Benin was gone. It was basically a death trap, as it were. And through proactive leadership, through engagement, constructive engagement, through collaborative approach, he was able to get the BOA group to begin to work on the Okpebholo-Ekpoma axis. While he, as governor, using Edo State funds for Edo State people, began to work from Benin to the Ekpoma axis. And so much work is going. That road is already being worked on. And several other roads in that area are already earmarked for attention. So in a very short while, we'll see a lot more would have been achieved in 100 days, to be very honest. But because of that challenge, like I talked about, the inconclusive transition between governments, so some time had to be taken to really assess what's on ground exactly, you know, what's available, how far have things been done, you know, and that took a little time, which may have cost some of the promises he made for 100 days not to have happened. But one thing you can be sure is that Governor Monday Okpebholo is committed to delivering on every promise he made to Edo people. He's a trusted person. He's somebody the Edo people trust, and he will not disappoint that trust.
He is governor now, so it's action time.
Of course.
The issue of trust will come over time. I'm sure we'll come back to have this conversation. He became governor on the heels of worsening court killings in places like Benin and others. I'm wondering what has happened in 3 months. And because I know that there was a kidnapping involving a traditional ruler. And then there were conversations about whether ransom was paid or not.
All right. So, like I explained earlier on, the governor is running on a shine agenda, and S there is for security. Since he came into office, he's done so much. The first security issue he handled, because it's interestingly happened that these cult issues have been a perennial problem in Edo State. And just before inauguration, there was a very serious one ongoing. Immediately he came in, within the first 3 days, within the first few days of coming into office, he was able to, through engagement and a carrot and stick approach, you know, bring all the warring parties to a table and ensure that that matter was resolved. Carrot and stick in the sense that while you are engaging on one side, you have a stick on the other side to ensure that if you don't comply, the stick will be applied. And that matter was dealt with. And he took it a step further by working with the House of Assembly to review the anti-cultism and kidnapping law, which has now provided for much stiffer punishments for anybody caught, you know, caught in that deviant behavior. And with the new consequences and with the new laws of being involved in things like that, I'm very sure it will be a deterrent to a lot of people. The situation with the kidnapped traditional ruler is also another testament to his pragmatic approach to security. I mean, immediately that matter happened, he gave the security agencies marching orders and supported, not just with words, with the necessary logistics and, of course, cooperating with local vigilantes and...
We have to go now.
They were able to
Okhuemoi is the special advisor on media and publicity to the Edo State governor. You know, this show is called Beyond 100 Days. Yes. So the big question is, what happens with the Okpebholo administration beyond 100 days? And that's a conversation we hope that we'll keep having with you in the coming days.
Anytime.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much.
That's our show today, everyone. Thanks for being a part of it. Remember, you can watch it again at midnight and at 6 a.m. tomorrow. The conversation continues online. Follow me at Nifemi Oguntoye on X.